Right, good morning and welcome to our webinar this morning. I'm just going to give this a few seconds to allow people to get out of the waiting room and into the live session. I can see we've got people joining, so that's great. Okay, so the webinar we have this morning for you is why choose WordPress. Before we get into the core of the presentation, I've just got a few kind of housekeeping points. You will notice as you join that the lines are all muted. We are recording the presentation today. Can you move the slides on, Steve?
What's that? Oh, are the slides not on?
They're on, but they're not moving on.
Aha.
Look at that. So yes, you're muted, but we're not. We are recording the session so that we can get a link to you after we've finished so that you can watch the session back. There'll be an opportunity there to download the slides as well. So any links and so on that we're showing will be available to you. Please do ask questions as we go through. You'll see on your kind of control panel at the bottom that there is a Q&A function and a chat function. You can submit questions through either of those. We'll answer what we can in the background as we're going through, but we do allow some time right at the end of the presentation so that we can ask some of those live of our presenters. So we've got three of us on the line today. My name's Rachel. I'm Business Development Manager here for Awesome Tech Training, mostly in the background, making sure you're logged in, covering questions, etc. I've got two of my colleagues on the line, both WordPress experts. So I've got Lorna Walker, who's also mostly in the background today, covering technical questions and so on. But our main presenter today, Steve Hanlon. So Steve, I will take it to you.
Thanks, Rachel. Right, okay, well, hello everyone. So today we're going to look at WordPress, a bit of an introduction, and also why you might choose to run your website on it. So first of all, I'll just introduce you to ourselves, really, and then we'll have a look at what what things make up a website, content management systems and why we might use those in order to sort of manage our sites, and also alternatives that are out there. So WordPress is one and is the most widely used content management system, but there are other ones there, and there are reasons for choosing other ones as well. But what does make WordPress so popular? So we'll have a look at that, and then we'll kind of pull it all together and look at what next steps as well that you might want to do or sort of with your site. And so just a quick thing about ourselves here at Awesome Tech Training. We're here really to sort of help small businesses, and there's a range of things you can do on the web, and we want to be able to sort of help you with those. So we've got a bunch of people where we have gone through, say, training, or we help them on a one-to-one basis. So our main product, so the main thing that we do is our build a website in one day. And it's kind of ideal for those people who are sort of either coming into it, so they want to build a site from scratch and they haven't used WordPress before, or they sort of want to understand better what it is that they've got. Maybe somebody else built it and they want to sort of take over control and manage that site. We also do advice and support as well. So you can arrange to have an hour's consultancy or whatever with us, so a bit of advice and support and help you with the site that you've got. And that can be across a range as WordPress and other aspects as well of using the web on your site. And we've got lots of other webinars as well. And so you'll see on the website, maybe you came through and booked this through there, and you'll see other things related to digital marketing and WordPress and the web. You'll find things listed there, and we've got a number of them coming up over the next couple of months. And because you're here, you'll get discounts on those things, and I'll sort of mention at the end what it is and how you can get those discounts via the website. So what is a website? So we use them every day, and it's useful to know what kind of makes them up in order to then understand what the content management system is doing. And so really a website's just a bunch of HTML and a bunch of media that's sort of flung together and sent to your visitors, and it renders and shows web pages and gives them that interactive experience which you want to sort of put across on the internet. So this is just some HTML that we've got here, and you can see it links off to some images. Now, years ago, we used to have dancing hamsters, and this is just a bunch of different images and HTML that make these up. And back in the day, you'd need experts in these and in this code to be able to put together a site as awesome as this. But of course, we don't need that so much anymore as things have moved on, and we still need coders and developers and designers, but a content management system is the thing that lets you build out your site without that level of technical expertise, and instead you can focus on the content and what it is that you want to get across to your visitors and prospective customers. So a CMS, and what we're looking at here is a screenshot, a bit of a screenshot from WordPress and the back end, and it kind of manages all the different bits that make up your site. So that's really sort of the text and the media, the images and maybe video, but it also looks after the broader aspect as well of your site. So the links, the way that you navigate around the menus, it also looks after the site design, and sort of you can add a lot of different types of functionality to it as well. And that all hangs within WordPress, and it gives you a single place where you're able to manage all of that content. And so you can see, we can start to see here as we start to look at the WordPress backend that we've got a menu here, and it gives us access to the different aspects of your site that you might want to use. And we'll dig into that a little bit more. But first we'll sort of think about some of the alternatives that are out there for WordPress. And there's a bunch. So this is just a snapshot and just a small number of some of the most popular alternatives to WordPress that you might find. And some of these you'll find are aimed at different markets or different people who might want to achieve different types of things. So you might have things like Magento, Shopify, which are sort of more aimed at e-commerce and people who are wishing to sell. You've got some which may be sort of based on the operating system. So where are we? Let me see if I can see it here. We've got things like Umbraco, which is a Windows-based CMS. So if you've got sort of like a Windows technical stack, so as a small business, you may not necessarily have a technical stack or what you think of it, but if you're based on Windows, then Umbraco may be something that you consider. If you're technically minded and you're sort of like more into sort of like programming, you may go for something like Drupal. So there's a number of things, and there's also CMSs that live out on the web and you subscribe to, rather than being things that you run yourself. One of those is WordPress.org, and so you may have come across that. WordPress.com. So there's WordPress.com and WordPress.org, and we're principally going to talk about WordPress.org here, which is the self-hosted, the one that you manage yourself. But there's WordPress.com that you can subscribe to. I mean, those subscriptions go from free through to many dollars a month, depending on what level that you want. And there are others. So you've got things like Squarespace and Wix and Shopify and others, which again, they'll give you an interface into those different ways of managing your site. But they're all CMSs in different ways. And if we look at the most popular CMSs, you'll see that by far, now I did this when I last looked at this back in January. So you'll see in terms of CMS sites, so if you go to a website and it's being controlled by a CMS, then it's likely, it's 50% likely. So you've got a 1 in 2 chance that it's being run by WordPress in the background. That's if it's got a CMS, and you'll see that these numbers drop off dramatically. So Wix, 7%, Squarespace at about 4%. So WordPress really dominates those sites that are run by a CMS. But then when you look at the whole sort of like of the internet, and some research that was done in January, in terms of sites, WordPress is now pushing at about 40% of all sites on the internet being run by WordPress. That is a massive number of sites that are being run by it, versus considerably fewer on other CMSs. This is sort of important when you start looking in terms of support and information and things that you can do. If you've got questions, then the fact that so many are being used helps with things like that. So, I mean, why not use one of these other CMSs? And there are good reasons for using them. And like I've said, there may be things where you may want to choose them, be it sort of like your preference for operating system or the environment that you're in, or the kinds of things that you want to do. But there are good reasons for using WordPress. So some of these alternatives cost money, whereas with WordPress you can download it and get started, or install it on your hosting and run it for free over and above the cost of your hosting. Some of those other ones, as you saw from the percentages across the internet, some of them are much more niche, and so your access in order to be able to get help and support from the wider community is so much less than it is with something that's so well used. And you also find that sometimes the flexibility that you may want or need in order to run your site is constrained sometimes. So you're limited when sites and CMSs use more of a point and click. So you're kind of very much constrained by the environment that you find yourself running in. And that happens a lot with, say, Squarespace and Wix. I mean, they're super flexible. You know, you can do an awful lot with them. But if you want to then push out and do other things, you do it really by pulling in other third-party services rather than building it in the site. And with sites like Wix and Squarespace, you don't really own your site. They're a walled garden, and they make it difficult to kind of pull your data down and make it difficult to sort of migrate to somewhere else. They've got a business incentive to be able to do that. You know, it's better for them to lock you into the sort of ecosystem. And so that can be a risk. That could be a business risk to you. Yeah, I don't know if you remember MySpace a couple of years ago, where they deleted all of the images and media and aspects of sites that some people have been building up over years. And they literally just put up a banner that sort of said, all of these have been deleted, are bad. If that was something that was, say, your business, then that could be devastating to you. And in the same way, you don't know if it's being hosted somewhere else, if that could be a risk to you. And so, and there are other aspects as well. So you're obviously sort of you have to work within other people's T's and C's when you're using other people's sites. And we do believe really sort of, we believe as sort of like Awesome Tech Training, but also you'll see just by the numbers that people really feel that because your site is an integral part of your business, or maybe the organization or the project that you're doing, that it's better to have control over it. And something like WordPress.org gives you that complete control over your site. And the other thing is that it's not just hobbyists who are using it. So there are many big organizations that use WordPress. So you mustn't sort of think that this sort of 50% of the internet or 50% of CMSs is just sort of people sat in a back room or in a cupboard. It's actually, you know, big, large organizations who are using WordPress as well. And so on that basis, then, what is it that makes it popular? I mean, we've touched on the fact that it's free. And that's a really compelling argument. it does mean that the barrier to entry to just sort of trying things out and to giving things a shot is very, very low. If you've got some hosting, then you can just sort of get up and get running. It's been going for a long time as well. And so you know, there's a lovely sort of open source and community based aspect to WordPress, which is lovely about it. But that also means that there's lots of people trying out things and doing things. So that sort of free open source aspect of WordPress is something that is almost charming, but it's a nice aspect of using WordPress. And in case you're worried about open source, so a lot of people sort of hear open source and worry about maybe aspects of security, whether or not it's going to be supported, or kind of whether or not that leaves you open to various bits and pieces. Open source really just means that the source code is freely available. So it's freely available, and there may be some sort of like restrictions around it in terms of the license, but usually those restrictions that maybe say, you know, you've got to sort of acknowledge that I wrote this, or sort of give a credit somewhere. And it allows you to take the code and modify it or extend it for yourself, or maybe in some circumstances for yourself, and then sell it on. It means that there's a clear openness. So whilst people having the code, it may put it at risk, people might be able to see bugs. It also means that lots of people can fix bugs and get on and make it better. And that's how things have grown so much. And a lot of the internet works on open source. So when you're using Facebook or Google, when you're using Instagram or whatever, all of these massive platforms, right at the heart of them is open source software of one element of the other. And so by using something like WordPress, which is open source, you're really just sort of aligning yourself and doing the same thing really as many of these other massive companies, which is, you know, to stand on the shoulders of these people who've written this code. And so in that sense, you know, it means that you're sort of part of a wider internet community in the way that you're using it. It's super easy to set up. So when you sort of decide you're going to try WordPress, whatever, if you've got some hosting, or if you get yourself some hosting, you very often find that there'll be a button, a deploy button, or something that sort of says install WordPress on this site. And so very often you can just sort of click that and go through a couple of steps, and then you've got your site running. We've got a section within the course that we've got where we go through that process really of just sort of installing through a one-click install. And we've also got a video of installing from scratch as well. So we can do both, but the one-click install is just super easy. And it's easy to use as well. It's different, so it's different to other things, but it's really super straightforward. So it was a blogging platform to start with, and it was written at a time when people were using sort of programs that they'd sort of like pulled together to be blogging and to make blogging easier. And so there's lots of aspects around sort of creating new blog posts, creating a welcoming sort of site so that people can sort of read blogs, and it expanded out so that you do pages and other bits and pieces and then run fully functioning sites. That's over a period of nearly 20 years. So there's a lot of stuff that's gone in it. But you will find that if you're coming at it from something like Squarespace or Wix, it does feel quite different. And a lot of that is around the dragging and the dropping of the pages. So we'll just have a quick look. So we've got a site. So here we've got a straight install of WordPress that I put together back in February. There's a later version now, and if you installed it now, it would look ever so slightly different, because these themes, the way that it looks, they tend to come out with one new one each year. But this is a demo site, and this has really just got a post, but it gives you all of these different bits, archives of your posts and different things, and you can have pages. So I've just created 2 pages over there, but in the background, if you were to log in, you get this, and I realize I've got, I don't know, I hope you can see that okay. I can see the slides through it sort of ever so slightly. The what you get here is the different aspects of your site, as I mentioned before, and so posts and pages, how the site might look, plugins, and we'll look at those things that extend your site and give it a bit more functionality, and also different users and different different users who can use your site and administer your site, maybe write things for you, and different tools for managing the site as well. So even out of the box, there's a lot there that you can use. And to sort of create a new page, so if you wanted to create some new content, you see we've got these, but we would just sort of click on Add New. And so within something like this, and within this theme, just adding a page is to create another new page. So we can start creating and start typing in our text, and we can start adding aspects to our site as well, and different sort of parts of page that we can add and start building up a page. So it's easy. We can sort of preview and see how it's going to look, and we can publish that once we're happy with it and get back on and get it published and out to the wider world. So this is just a first sort of touch into WordPress. And I'll just give you an aspect of an understanding or an overview really of the different ways that you can customize this to be the site that you want it to be. And there's really sort of 3 parts to WordPress, which are the key things that you can change. And these are the themes. So that's the way it looks, the site design, the way that the menus appear, the way that your content, whether or not you have a sidebar and how it works sort of responsively. All of these things are managed by the theme. And responsive sites are ones that work in browsers, and they also work on mobile phones as well, without you having to have 2 different versions of the site. All of that is managed in the theme. You've also got plugins. So plugins are the things that give you extra functionality. They go above and beyond just pages and posts, and give you things like e-commerce and forms. They give you chatbots maybe, or richer interactive things that you can do. So all of these things you can do through plugins. I'll show you about those. And also blocks. So blocks are the things, they're literally the building blocks that you put together to build up your page. And so we sort of saw them briefly, but it's sort of paragraphs and images. They might be maps or forms or other parts of your page, which can sort of help sort of create what it is that you're trying to put together. And they're all done in such a way, all 3 aspects are done in such a way that if you can't find what it is that you want, if you can't sort of seek out, and there are thousands of things out there, you can get a developer, or you can develop it yourself. You can learn how to sort of extend it yourself and build it out. And a lot of that is that open source ethic of, well, if it doesn't do what you want to do, just do it yourself and make it go. That said, there is an awful lot of stuff out there. So, for example, with themes, you can choose lots of different ways that your site looks. There's so when I last checked, there were over 31,000 themes available for WordPress. Lots of them are sort of similar looking. So some of them are like this, with a big hero image and then sections underneath. But you also get different layouts, And the other thing you get as well with themes is themes that are designed specifically for particular industries or particular types of websites. And so you'll have themes that are aimed at e-commerce, or maybe themes that are aimed at, say, trainers or bakers or butchers or coders, social media managers. And we can have a look at some of these if we go into appearance and themes. So in here, you'll see that on this installation, which I've not updated, we've got 3 themes installed. And you can see if we do a live preview of this, which is the latest version, it's really stark. And so the latest version comes with a very stark, plain theme, which just gives you sort of the title and some of the details, and then some sort of navigation. And if you liked that, you could just click activate and publish. That theme will then be live on your site. But you're not restricted to the ones that come. So these are ones that came when I installed it. You're not restricted to these. You see we've got add new here, and there's a themes gallery. And this is really your key way of getting into those 31,000 different themes. And you can start searching. You can see which are featured. So these are ones that WordPress.org are sort of pushing as maybe themes that you might want to do. And all of these themes are free. So anything that gets listed here has to be free. So the people who've got it can't charge you for it. They can't charge you for just sort of putting them here. So if we liked the look of this, we could click on it. We get some information. We get a sort of view of this. And we could install it. And installing it, it just sort of pulls it down from the WordPress.org site, from their servers, and it installs it, pops the files into your system. And so now, if we go back into our themes, we should see that we've now got this available to us if we want to use it. I'm not sure how we'll get, but so you see we've got our site here now within this theme, and you'll find that this big image here is editable, and all sorts of different aspects of it, so you can tailor it to what it is that you want. So those are themes. You can get paid themes, so you can go to places like Theme Forest and others, where there are developers and designers who put together commercial or sort of paid themes. And there also, you can get a designer to do it as well. So there's a clear way that designers can sort of put these things together. So you're not limited to just the ones that you get on the theme gallery. And I touched on responsive sites earlier. So really, these are just versions of the site for desktop and for mobile as well. This is our site. And you'll see that things collapse down. The menu turns into a little thing here. And our social buttons, you see, get centralized, and all of this sort of like collapses down. And you'll have seen this, how sort of wide pages get sort of rearrange themselves to be better on a mobile. And many of those themes that you find will do this for you automatically. So you don't have to worry about these things. Okay, so plugins. So of the 3 things that you can do to sort of like tailor your site to what you want to do, plugins are the thing that gives you all of the functionality that you want. And so very commonly, you find that sort of feedback or sort of contact us forms are used, and you'll find maps and then things that help with administering the site as well. So you've got plugins really that sort of help with the way that you're talking to your visitors, and you've got plugins which help with the way that you're managing the site as well. And so all of these things, and you can see, get an idea of the different kinds of things here. Contact forms are always popular, but things like SEO for how you sort of score in your searching, that's very popular as well. E-commerce, that's for talking to your visitors, but the page builders, the way that the pages are put together, some of these are about how you administer the site. And adding plugins is pretty much similar to adding your themes or choosing a theme. So you've got plugins here, and you can see the little 2 in the little red. That just means that there's 2 that need to be updated. So there's newer versions of 2 of these plugins that I've got here. And so it's very easy to see if there are updates that you need to do. So these are the plugins that are on in the site here. We've only got one here that we're running live, and you'll see actually that that's one that I've written and been testing in here. And so you can get a developer to sort of add plugins if you want as well. But if you want to have a look at what plugins are available, you just look at the plugin gallery or the plugin library, and you do exactly the same thing as with themes. And so say you want to do some e-commerce, you can pop in and start pulling back plugins that are associated with e-commerce. So WooCommerce, which we'll touch on, is the most popular, but there are other things out there as well. Something here and something. Most of these are sort of like based around WooCommerce, and that's because it's so popular. And so there's a big thing around it. But say forms as well, because lots of people have written different types of forms. And so you'll see all of these. This is 4 different types of ways of putting a form on your site. And one of these will suit the way that you want to do it best. And you can install it. Just click on install, activate it to make it run, try it out. And if it doesn't work, you just uninstall it again. All of the plugins that you see listed here are free. And you can't be listed if you're not free. But often they have a freemium, what they call a freemium model, which means that you could get some of the functionality for free, or a lot of the functionality for free, enough to be able to really get your teeth into it. And then if there are sort of aspects or extensions that you want to be able to do, then you have to pay for those bits. But very often you can get a very long way with the free versions. And the same actually holds for themes as well. So a lot of themes, the more professional themes, are done on a freemium version as well, where you're able to get a long way with the free version before you've got to sort of pay for anything. So there's a lot of them out there. So like there's 30-odd thousand themes, there's 50-odd thousand plugins. And again, I think I checked this at the turn of the year. And so there's going to be more than that now. And like I showed, there's just this button where you can just install it and activate it. So installing and getting the plugin running is just a really simple, straightforward process. And yeah, you can build your own as well, which is kind of what I was trying out on the other side for generating some feedback on a project that I was working on. And so the third aspect of your tailoring, your customizing your site, and the way that it looks is the blocks that are available for building out your pages. Excuse me. And you'll see, we saw it earlier when I just sort of popped on to creating a new page, but we'll look at it again. We've got this block gallery here. And so wherever you've got a place on your page where you can pop something in, then you can choose what type of block you want to pop in there. This is a relatively new thing within WordPress. And when I say relatively new, it's like 2 years now, maybe. But some people still sort of grapple and wish that it was the old version. And most of those are sort of old school, sort of HTML kind of people. The blocks are great because if something's in a block, it means you can rearrange them. And so it means that you've got something more visual when you're building the page. And it also means that you're kind of giving all of that information about how it should be rearranged when it's mobile, because you're sort of showing what the parts of the page are. So the blocks really work well. The editor's called Gutenberg, so if you were ever Googling or trying to find an aspect of it, then very often if you search Gutenberg and then the thing you want to do, then you would be able to find it. So if you look at this page, let me see, my new page, and you can see that I just had this as a text page, but you will see around about, we've got these pluses, so you'll see sometimes they'll appear here, and sometimes, depending on where you are, they will appear in the body of the page. For some reason, I'm not getting them on this, but I've been playing a little bit, and so I think my mouse works slightly differently at the moment. But what you can do is wherever your cursor is, you can add blocks. You can set them before or after the thing that you're working on. You can add them here. And what you've got when you're adding blocks is these different bits, and you can search for them. So say you wanted to pop an image in, you could just search here and you can see there's different ways, maybe a cover image, maybe you want to have a media and text, so an image, or pull in something from Flickr, say. So if you've got photos or whatever over a Flickr, you can pull them out from over there. And it's straightforward. You just sort of click on it and then it lets you choose what image you want to do. You keep a library, say for images, so you can sort of like keep common images or the images that you use on your site in a library and then pick from them. And so you build up your page with all of these different blocks. And that's how you sort of like set something up. It allows you to put in, say, columns and tables. So things like a page with 3 columns of information you can do really easily. You see like here, 2 columns of text with images. All of these bits make it quite easy to sort of build your page as you want it. And you can see here, there's like things for tweeting. Very often, if there's something that you want to do on the page, then somebody's written a block for it. The thing though is that you might have something specific that doesn't have a block, be it maybe integration with something that you've got within the business, the organization, maybe presenting some information or videos in a particular format. If you find that you don't have the thing that you want to be able to put on the page, then again, you can always sort of get a developer or someone to put it together for you. So the 3 things together, those themes, plugins, and blocks, means that you can basically build anything that you want within the structure of WordPress. And a lot of people have, there's a massive variety of different types of sites out there. And the other thing about it means that you don't have to be technical. You don't have to be sort of like a techie whiz in order to be able to do it, in order to be able to build that sort of awesome site that you really want to try and build in it. We've got the course, which I've mentioned before, and that goes through all the aspects. So it goes through all of these bits and will get you up to speed and beyond in the way that you use WordPress and the way that you're sort of able to use these different aspects of it. And you can find that on the site, and I'll give you some more information at the end of this. And what I'll do is quickly, we've got about another 10 minutes or so. I'll just have a look through some of the different types of things that you can do with WordPress and kind of how easy it is in order to be able to do different things. And one of them is e-commerce. And so a lot of people want to get online and either get selling their products or a service or some other thing. And it's very easy to do within something like WordPress. And there's lots of plugins. Now there's WooCommerce, which we saw earlier, and that is the most popular. But there's others. So BigCommerce, for example, is sort of like an e-commerce site. And they also sort of give you infrastructure for sort of fulfillment and other different bits as well. And there are plugins for that. If you're just selling things digitally, you might not need sort of some of the bits that come with WooCommerce, which is a full sort of online store. You may just want a button that says, I want to download this now and I want to pay for it. And easy digital downloads is a really easy way to use that, and it's very popular. And just adding PayPal buttons onto your site as well. So there are plugins that make that easy, and plugins that help you sort of tie your PayPal account with the thing either that you're selling or the service that you want to give. And so this is just really the tip of the iceberg, but I'll be honest, WooCommerce makes up a big part of the tip and a big part of the iceberg underneath. And there's a good reason for that. It's very, very popular, and it's got a lot of functionality. So the free version has pretty much everything that you need in order to be able to run a fully formed online business. And it gives you everything through from creating your store, adding the stock, managing that stock, having a store that looks like one that visitors will recognize and know exactly how to use immediately. And also integration with all of your payment gateways. So be it credit card payments or other ways that you want to be able to take payments, all of that is integrated. And all of it is integrated in the free version as well. So it's there's a lot there. And so here we're looking at the list of products. So this is from the How to Use WooCommerce webinar that we do. And I go through setting up a pizza shop. And we have different pizzas, and we've got fizzy pop and different sort of flavors of fizzy pop. And the point being, we've got cross-selling and we've got upselling as well. And all of this comes in the free version of WooCommerce. If you're selling widgets, so you're selling something where you've got a limited stock at any one time, you can use it to manage that stock. And when you've sold or when you've nearly sold out, you can have it stop offering it to be sold. You can never find, you should really with WooCommerce, never find yourself in a position where people are making orders and you don't have the stock to fulfill it. It will calculate delivery and tax, which is super useful. It understands you can set things with different weights, different types of postage. You may be in different sort of tax areas, and it's able to sort of pull in all of those different aspects so you can tailor it to the market that you're looking to go for. And it also manages the process, the workflow through the fulfillment of the order, from getting an email saying somebody has made the order through to being notified that they've paid for it, keeping the customer informed, so sending them the emails to sort of say your product is now being sent, or you should get it soon. All of those kinds of aspects of the whole of the e-commerce thing are looked after through this plugin, which makes it super powerful. And something that is always mind-boggling is that it's free. The extras that you kind of have to pay for are things like bundled products and certain aspects of the way that you put things together. You get a very long way on the free version. Other things that you can do in WordPress to add that functionality in, well, you can deliver training courses. So we've got a training course, and we use a plugin called LearnPress, which is an LMS, a learning management system. And we use that one because it nicely integrates with WooCommerce. It means that people can sort of make a payment and then get access to the course. And it also gives you a nice way of structuring sections and lessons. So if you were to sort of take a look at, say, the course on our website, you'll see that it's structured into sort of like an introduction, using plugins, putting together how your pages and your site's going to look, so that it's easier to go through and easier to build your course and easier to learn, for people to learn from it. We use another plugin called event tickets, and these allow us, you might have gone through it yourself, you can sort of set up an event, you can say how many people can go. It can be virtual like this, it could be a real live in a venue event, and it will allow you to sort of either create tickets, let people sort of present them on their phones if you're having people come, and it tracks all of that, and again it plugs into WooCommerce, and so it means that you can quite easily sort of like build out, and so we use those. We use MailChimp, so you'll have seen MailChimp for running email lists, or you may have received MailChimp emails, and so we use a plugin, which means that people who make orders or ask to be on the mailing list will get added to the mailing list. So there's a process there, and all of that functionality we've just kind of bolted onto the site. And a really important one is search engine optimization. So SEO is really important because it's how a lot of people will find you. People will find you by using Google or Bing, and they'll plug their queries in, and you want to be there when people are looking for you. And so WordPress over time sees the changes that are happening in SEO and the kinds of changes that Google and Microsoft and others make. And so then they tweak the CMS so that it presents itself and it talks to the search engines in a way that makes it easier for people to find you. And so you don't have to be an SEO expert in order to get a long way in being structured for Google. And it's kind of baked in. So one of the things that you get is that URLs are search engine friendly. And that means things like, if this page was, you know, my fancy new widget, it says my new page, but it uses the title and it uses information here for building up your URL. And Google and Bing use that in order to be able to sort of like say, okay, well, this is a site about fancy new pages. This is a page about a widget. It tells Google what your page is. There are things now baked into WordPress where images are only loaded when they actually appear within the browser, or when they should appear in the browser. So imagine a big long page full of images. So years ago it would be slow because it would have to download all of those images. Nowadays it only loads those that you can see, so those that would be visible. And then as you scroll, and you may have seen this on some sites, as you scroll up, you see the images popping in. And that's because it's called lazy loading. And WordPress is looking after that for you. And it's making it quicker. When Google comes along and says, okay, how quick is this site? Pops up. And so it's better than it would have been had it had to try and load all of those images in the first place. So that helps. And also sitemaps are just sort of like a technical aspect of things, which sort of says, these are all my pages. Google, these are the pages I've got. Come and look at these and index these. And so WordPress looks after all of those for you. And it's for things like this that when people look at why would you choose a CMS, or which CMS should you choose in terms of search engine optimization, WordPress consistently comes out one of the top ones, and most of the ones I've seen, it's always come out at the top, but there are some where others do, but that's really just on the margins. It's there's a lot of very good SEO stuff in there. And building on the SEO stuff that's actually within WordPress itself, there's a plugin called Yoast. And Yoast gives you a lot more fine-grained control. of your SEO as well. And we've got an SEO webinar coming up as well. If you look in the page on our webinar page, you should be able to book into that if you want to bob on it. Now, Yoast is basically like it's a freemium plugin, like I mentioned earlier. And at the end of every page, at the end of every post, and at the end of, say, if you've got products in WooCommerce, you'll get a little panel like this, and it gives you information about the SEO aspects of your page. And it gives you different things that you can do with your page as well, tweaks, which make it better and make it easier for places like Google to understand what you're doing. And so here, you can modify the way that your page sort of renders or should render within Google. So you can give it a clue. You can give Google a hint as to the way that you want your page to render in the searching. But it also lets you modify other kinds of schema data. So you'll see up here. And a lot of this is around telling Google what kind of page you've got. Is it, say, a webinar like this? You know, are you advertising that as an event? Is it just a straight web page with information? Or is it, say, a recipe, if you've got a recipe site? All of these different bits of information mean that Google will sort of give that help people who are looking for it a lot more. So you're kind of making sure that Google has all the information in order to be able to help people trying to find you. And so this is great. An awful lot of this, again, is free. And you pay for some of the more advanced parts of it. And we'll just touch on multi-user. So when I showed that menu on the left-hand side, over here, so you see here we've got users, and just got me as an administrator. You see we've got a role of administrator here. Well, it means that you can create many different roles, many different people. So you can add people who may be doing different things on your site. And those things might be, well, you might be the administrator, and the administrator can do everything. You might have editors who are sort of reviewing and posting stuff themselves, but also reviewing and posting other people's posts. You might have authors, people who are sort of modifying pages and bits of the site, but they're not necessarily making them live. You want someone to check it first. And you've also got a role of subscriber. These are people who are just sort of coming and looking and signing up to sort of see what's going on the site. You can create other roles as well, and some plugins, depending on what they do, will create other roles as well. And if you do need other flexibility as well, then there's a plugin which will just let you create any type of role that you want and let them do really teeny tiny specific things. And I'll just touch on security. So anything on the internet needs to be secure. It could be your fridge, it could be your website, it could be your smartwatch. I mean, anything that's talking on the internet needs to be secure. And in the same way, WordPress obviously needs to be secure. And you'll find that versions are regularly updated. So there's usually a major update, and that's usually a feature update once or twice a year, and that'll take place. But there's lots of little security updates that take place through the year as well. And they will automatically update the little security updates will sort of just sort of go in as released. That's on the core WordPress. There's with your plugins and with your theme, if there's like a security update, you can set them to automatically update. And so it's handy because it means that you're sort of on top of a lot of the security stuff, but you know, it's best not to forget. So it just takes away one aspect of some of the things that you need to do when you're looking after your site. And like I say, automatically updating themes and plugins and WordPress itself. That is super useful. And it does mean that your site is a lot more secure than just sort of leaving it open. Right. There's a lot of support. So out, you know, when I said about 50% of CMSs, 40% of like the whole of the internet is running on WordPress. Well, that means that there's a lot of support and help out there. And so there's a lot of people who can help you. There's designers and developers, there's people asking questions and people answering questions right around. There's lots of user groups. So you'll find that if you want to sort of tap into sort of a lot of this knowledge, there's even a Discord channel if you're sort of using Discord. A lot of the development and more technical aspects of it are now sort of discussed over there, but there's other user groups as well. Stack Overflow, there's a lot. Generally, if you plug your question into Google, it'll take you to somewhere like Stack Overflow where the question has already been asked and very often has been answered and answered well. And so really, if you're looking and you're using WordPress and you've got a question, then Google is your friend in a lot of cases. So, I mean, when you're thinking about why should you choose WordPress, it's like, why would you choose that over like a lovely little site that you can craft yourself? Well, you get a lot for free. You do get a lot for free with WordPress and with the sort of vast range of plugins and themes that are there as well. You get to own your own content, which is a really important part, I think, from a commercial and also from just being feeling that you've got control. Having your own content is important. It's super customizable. So you basically do pretty much anything that you want within the structure of a WordPress site. And you're not on your own. So there's a lot of people out there who are able to help you. There's a massive community. There's some wonderful websites that have got some stuff, and there's some brilliant training as well. I like to think that our training and the stuff and the way that we help people with WordPress as well, at whatever level through the process, from just starting out through to people who've had WordPress sites for many, many years. We work across the board, and it's a delight really to work with so many people about helping them, training, and also sort of giving them advice on the way that they can use their sites. There's a lot of wonderful stuff out there that you can touch on. And so we've got some free resources that you can download. There's some links here, and we'll send you through the slides after this. And so you'll have the links in that. We've got our Build a Site in an Hour video, which is great. We get some wonderful feedback from this, which basically goes through a process of building out a single page site with that sort of navigation that takes you down through the site. We've got an SEO for Small Businesses guide. You might want to download that and have a read through. It gives a lot of really useful search engine optimization information, and also a good and building out, and it's always growing video library as well, with lots of different aspects about WordPress. We've got digital marketing resources as well, and so you'll see that there's a whole heap of different webinars and things that are coming up over the next 2 months. What I suggest is you take these links, have a look. Maybe some of them will be perfect for what it is that you want to be able to do. And if you use this code here, webinar 21, when you're checking out, then you'll get a 20% discount at the end. It's 20% in 2021 rather than 21%. Last year it was more confusing. So webinar 21, and you'll be able to get that discount. And we also have WordPress training. So this is our sort of like big product. We've got our self-paced video training course as well, which you'll find that's normally £100, and you can get it for £50 if you get it in the next few days. If you bob on sort of by the end of next week and use this code, WordPress 50%, you'll be able to get it for £50, and you get access to that, and you get a free website, like a training website where you can go on and go through the whole of the process yourself and build out your own site. And what we find is that some people will just build out their own site and then make it live at the end. And we've got lots of which you should be able to find as well. And I think that's it. Rachel, I went a little bit longer, so apologies.
You're dead on the hour. You're dead on the hour. That's fine. Right, I've got a couple of questions that have come in. Just as a reminder, if anyone else has got questions, please use the Q&A function or the chat function. We'll pick them up and we can read them out to Steve for you. WordPress security. Aren't there security concerns with WordPress?
It's a good question, and I kind of touched on it a little bit. There are concerns. A lot of people get concerned about the security in WordPress. There are two aspects really to do with security in WordPress, and one is core WordPress, and that is the sort of the WordPress.org, which is the thing that you build out on. And then there's the security about the themes and the plugins that you install as well, which may be developed by different sets of people. Now, the core WordPress is maintained frequently. So there's sort of an active set of developers who are either sort of building out new functionality, or as things sort of come out with security issues, then they're being addressed and patches being released. The thing that you need to keep an eye on, so generally with core WordPress, you're fine. And even if they move to a new major version, they will still push out minor version, which get automatically installed for earlier versions. So you will always have the latest secure version of WordPress on there. And there's been 2 releases in April. Well, there's been 1 release in April and 1 at the end of March. There was a major release at the end of March and a security 1 in April. So they're just in the same way as with your phone or with other things, you get regular updates which sort of address those security things. The other side is plugins and themes, because they're developed by different people. And the key things are, make sure that your automatic updates are on, and generally keep an eye on it. There's a very good plugin called WordFence, which you can use, and that covers aspects of people just trying to hack into your site, but also keeps you informed about plugins that have either expired, aren't being managed anymore, or just needs sort of updating. We do have a webinar this afternoon, which is about regular maintenance of WordPress. And to be honest, the key thing, and with anything, is just regular maintenance and the kinds of things that you do each month, quarter, year, or whatever, to sort of keep your site secure. And if you do those things, then it's fine. Sorry.
Cool, that's all right. I've got a couple that have come in about moving off something else into WordPress. So how do you move off Wix into WordPress, and how do you copy and paste content from an existing Drupal site? So how do you move over without wasting all of the stuff you've already built?
Okay. With Wix, and Lorna, you might have done this more recently than me. Did we do this a couple of months ago?
I don't think from Wix. I think we've done it from
Squarespace.
But essentially, there's a process in every case. Sometimes it's easier than others. It depends a little bit on what you're starting with. But you download your content and re-upload it into the new system. So there's plenty of resources for all major systems to all other major systems. So the answer is yes. It's more or less fiddly sometimes. So you might have to spend some time tidying up. You might find that there are issues with your images, but getting the actual core content across is usually relatively straightforward.
I've just got on Drupal. So Drupal is probably a bit more like WordPress in the sense, I mean, it looks, and the whole infrastructure is completely different, but it's depending on how it's been tweaked and developed. You may be able to sort of copy and paste articles and posts and pages in the HTML. So you can access a page as HTML rather than as say the Gutenberg editor. And so in those cases, you might find, and with Drupal, that there could be 1,000 different ways that it's been tweaked, but very often you'd be able to sort of pull the content out that way. But I'll be honest, if you've got a Drupal site, chances are you can do a MySQL dump of it, tweak it, and then load it up into your WordPress. You're probably that technical already.
Okay, thank you. A question about hosting. Do you need any sort of WordPress specific hosting, or does any old hosting work?
On your hosting, you need basically PHP, a new version of it, or a relatively recent version of it. PHP is the language, so it's interpreted, that sort of makes the pages run. And then a database. So more often than not, like 99.9% of the time, it's a MySQL database. So you need PHP and MySQL really to be able to run it. There's a bunch of other things as well that may be needed for other plugins, like image manipulation and things, which you might want on the hosting, but most of the time that's available. And you will find with most hosting that it'll say that you can run WordPress. If they've got a one-click install, like I mentioned earlier, then they'll be able to run WordPress anyway. It's only for sort of like smaller hosting companies where they might not necessarily have this stuff set up. If you go to WordPress.org, you'll see that there's a list of requirements on there as well. If you want to speak to the hosting people and sort of ask them if they've got it, it's got a full set.
Okay, you just mentioned there WordPress.com and WordPress.org. That is one of the questions. What's the difference between the two?
WordPress.org is the software. So WordPress.org is effectively the version of WordPress that you can deploy freely, that you can download and run on your laptop if you want. You can install on servers and run them as websites on the internet. WordPress.com came out of some of the developers who developed that software, and as a commercial service in the same way as Wix and Squarespace and others, where you can sort of pay. You can get a free account and have a site, or you can set up and pay monthly in order to be able to have more access or more visitors or sort of more flexibility. So they have sort of a managed version of WordPress that they run at WordPress.com. And so there's pros and cons of both. WordPress.com, you're kind of restricted in some of the things that you can do, so you don't have the flexibility really that you do with WordPress.org.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of others that we've said we'll follow up with separately. So I think, let me just cross check. Yeah, I think that we've covered everything that's come in. So I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody who attended. We will get, as I mentioned, a copy of the recording and the slides out to you later today. For the couple of people I need to follow up with, I'll get you an email in the next few minutes once we're finished here. Thank you, Lorna, for your help in the background answering questions, and thank you, Steve, for your presentation. Hopefully we will see some of you on another of our courses sometime soon. Thank you.